They made me the punchline of their joke, but the joke's still running, and soon, the laughter will stop. My name is Madison Carter, and once upon a time, I was everyone's favorite target. I wasn't the loudest, prettiest, or richest girl at Crescent Media, the PR firm where I worked. I was just average. Too kind, too quiet, and apparently, too easy to mock. The ringleaders were Harper Lane and Jake Nolan, the company's golden duo. Perfect smiles, expensive shoes, and hearts as cold as glass. They were the kind of people who built confidence by tearing others down. Harper was my direct supervisor, charming in meetings, venomous in private. Jake was her partner in crime, the office comedian who thought humiliation was just good fun. When I first joined the firm, I admired them. I wanted to learn, to grow, to belong. But admiration quickly turned to embarrassment. My first mistake, a small typo in a press release, became the office's favorite story. Harper laughed about it in front of the entire team, saying, "Don't worry, Maddie's still learning how to use spell check." Everyone laughed. Even the interns. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe it was just workplace banter. But the jokes never stopped. They mimicked my voice during meetings, rolled their eyes when I shared ideas, even made memes about me in the office group chat. Every time I tried to defend myself, Harper smiled sweetly and said, "Relax, Madison. It's just humor. You really need to learn to take a joke." But it wasn't funny anymore. I started dreading Mondays. My stomach twisted every morning as I rode the elevator up 12 floors to a place where respect didn't exist. My work, the reports I stayed up all night perfecting, was handed to Harper, who presented them as her own. Jake would wink at me from across the table as if it were all a game. The worst came during the annual office party. I walked in, hopeful for one night without cruelty, but instead, found a slideshow of funny office moments. My face appeared on the screen, edited into ridiculous memes and fake quotes. Everyone laughed. Cameras flashed. My chest burned with humiliation. That night, I walked out of the building and swore I'd never let them make me small again. I didn't know it then, but that humiliation was my turning point. The moment the joke stopped being funny and started becoming dangerous. Because when you push the quiet one too far, she learns to speak in ways you'll never forget. Strange how cruelty can start to sound normal when you hear it every day. After the office party, I told myself it was fine, that I was overreacting, that maybe I was too sensitive. That's exactly what Harper wanted me to believe. "It's just teasing," she'd say with a perfect smile, always loud enough for others to hear. "You know we love you, Maddie. You're like our little mascot." Mascot. Not colleague. Not partner. Mascot. I laughed with them sometimes, even when it hurt. Because what else could I do? I needed the job. I needed the paycheck. And deep down, I still believed things might get better. But then the warning signs began stacking up, little things at first, just enough to make me doubt my own sanity. Emails I'd sent to clients would disappear. Deadlines I knew I'd met were marked incomplete. Then Harper would stroll into my cubicle with a disappointed sigh, her voice sugary sweet. "Madison, I'm not sure what's happening, but you're slipping. Maybe this workload is too much for you?" And always, behind her, Jake would stand by the printer, smirking. I'd catch them whispering in the break room, their voices lowering the moment I walked in. I once overheard Harper say, "She'll crack soon. I can already see it." When I turned the corner, they smiled like nothing happened. The emotional toll hit quietly, sleepless nights, cold coffee gone untouched, my phone lighting up with office group messages that I couldn't bring myself to open. Every sound of laughter made my heart race, wondering if it was about me again. But the first real fracture happened on a Wednesday morning. Harper called me into a meeting, just her and Jake. On the table were several printed emails, ones I'd supposedly sent to clients with inappropriate comments. I stared at them in disbelief. My name. My signature. But the words? They weren't mine. Madison, Harper said, crossing her legs casually. I don't know what's gotten into you, but this is serious. If corporate sees this, I can't protect you. Jake leaned back in his chair, pretending to look sympathetic. Maybe it's stress, he said. People make desperate choices. My throat went dry. They had faked emails. Someone had forged them, and I knew exactly who. But when I looked into Harper's calm, rehearsed expression, I realized how dangerous they'd become. That night, as I packed my bag, I noticed a sticky note on my desk. It wasn't in my handwriting. Just 4 words, scrawled in black ink, still think it's funny? The office was empty. The lights flickered. And for the first time, I felt something colder than humiliation, fear. Sometimes, betrayal doesn't shout, it whispers in your ear until the silence drives you insane. After the forged emails, I tried to defend myself. I sent proof to HR, copies of real correspondence, timestamps, even screenshots. But when they called me into the conference room a week later, I knew the verdict before they spoke. Harper and Jake sat across from me, calm, confident, rehearsed. Madison, the HR manager, said softly, "We've reviewed the evidence, and it seems your behavior doesn't align with company standards." My stomach dropped. You mean the fake emails? Jake leaned forward, face painted in false concern. Come on, Maddie. You can't blame others for your mistakes forever. Harper added, "We tried to help you. But it's best for everyone if you step away before this damages the company's reputation." It hit me like a slap. They weren't just mocking me anymore, they were destroying me. I walked out numb, holding the termination letter in my shaking hands. 3 years of work, gone in an instant. No warning, no severance, nothing but humiliation. And yet, that wasn't the worst part. The real betrayal came 2 weeks later. I opened my laptop to see Harper and Jake's faces all over LinkedIn. Congratulations to Harper Lane and Jake Nolan for launching their new PR division, the brainchild behind Crescent Media's biggest campaigns. My campaigns. My strategy decks. My presentations, even my client testimonials. They'd stolen everything. I clicked through their posts, photo after photo of them smiling beside my old clients, pitching ideas I'd created. Every comment praised their innovation. Every like was another dagger in my chest. And then I saw it, a video clip from their new launch party. Jake, microphone in hand, laughing as he said, "We've had some learning experiences in the past. You can't build success without a few jokes along the way, right, Harper?" Harper smirked at the camera. "Some people just aren't built for this industry." Laughter. Applause. Champagne. And me? Sitting in the dark, watching the people who'd humiliated me now profit from it. I felt my world tilt, anger burning through every ounce of sadness. The woman who once stayed silent was gone, replaced by something colder. I wanted to scream, to expose them, to make them feel what they made me feel. But something inside me said wait. Because revenge, real revenge, isn't loud. It's precise. As I stared at their smug faces frozen on the screen, I whispered to myself, "You want a joke? Fine. But this time, you'll be the punchline." And for the first time in months, I smiled. For weeks, I disappeared. No calls. No messages. Just silence. The world thought I'd vanished, maybe even broken. And for a while, they were right. My days blurred together, cold coffee, unopened bills, and the endless replay of that video in my mind. Harper's smirk. Jake's laughter. Their audience's applause. Every time I closed my eyes, it played again like a cruel loop I couldn't escape. But pain has a strange way of sharpening your vision. And one morning, something inside me cracked, not with sadness, but with clarity. It started with an email. It was from Mara, an old client of mine who'd left Crescent Media right before my firing. The subject line read, "They're using your campaign." My pulse spiked. I opened the message to find attachments, proposal documents, campaign outlines, and recorded Zoom calls. Every file carried my name in the metadata. My work. My designs. Mara's message was short but powerful. "I don't know what happened between you and them, but I thought you should see this. They didn't even bother changing your watermarks." I stared at the screen for a long moment, then laughed. Not out of joy, but realization. They'd stolen my work, but in their arrogance, they'd left fingerprints everywhere. For the first time since my downfall, the fog began to lift. That evening, I pulled out my old hard drive. I hadn't touched it since the day I was fired. Inside, I found everything: original drafts, email threads, timestamps, client approvals. Proof. Solid, undeniable proof. And as I scrolled through it, a quiet thought bloomed: what if I didn't just survive this? What if I turned it against them? I started watching interviews, reading legal blogs, studying case files on intellectual property. The more I learned, the more a fire grew inside me. I wasn't the helpless victim they painted me as. I was the architect of their success, and soon, I'd be the architect of their downfall. One night, as rain tapped against my apartment window, I looked at my reflection: tired eyes, messy hair, and a spark that hadn't been there before. "They took everything from me," I whispered to the glass, "but they forgot one thing." The reflection smirked back. "I still know how to win." That was the night Madison the employee died, and Madison the strategist was reborn. From that moment, I made a silent vow: no more tears, no more hiding. I would build my revenge the same way I built my campaigns: carefully, intelligently, and with perfect timing. Because if they wanted a joke, I'd make sure it ended with their laughter turning to silence. And it all started now. A revenge, I decided, would be more like a marketing campaign than a meltdown: precise, staged, and impossible to ignore. Step 1: gather the receipts. I spent nights reconstructing everything Harper and Jake had stolen. Original PSDs, raw footage, time-stamped emails, client approvals, metadata that couldn't be faked. Mara sent me the Zoom recordings she'd saved. An ex-graphic designer from Crescent dumped a folder of files showing Harper's edits layered on top of my originals. An IT friend I'd helped years ago peeled back server logs and found the timestamps when documents were moved and who accessed them. Every file was another brick in a case I could build. Step 2: assemble allies. I texted the people they thought they'd broken. The junior account exec whose bonus never materialized. The assistant Harper had quietly fired. A small business client who'd been misled into a disastrous ad buy. None wanted a viral rant, they wanted restitution. I offered something better: a plan that made their losses visible and forced the company to answer. They signed affidavits. They agreed to testify. Quiet support became a coalition. Step 3: set the traps. Harper and Jake loved pride and performance. They would launch their new division at the Regional PR Awards, a glossy night where journalists and investors gathered to celebrate success. It was the perfect stage. I seeded false leads, a mock pitch that played to Harper's ego, a planted rumor about a revolutionary campaign they couldn't resist showcasing. I fed their PR machine a baited line and waited for them to bite. Step 4: build the legal and public scaffolding. I met with a lawyer who specialized in IP theft. She laughed when I showed her the metadata, then stopped laughing when she saw the server logs. Subpoenas were drafted, witness statements notarized. In parallel, I briefed a freelance investigative reporter who had a reputation for exposing corporate theft. We agreed on the timing. Legal moves and public exposure would land together, like a spotlight and a hammer. Step 5. Orchestrate the reveal. On awards night, my coalition would be in the room, the assistant with the original drafts, the ex-developer with server logs, Mara with the Zoom recording. The reporter would run a live thread, the lawyer would hand over sealed evidence if anyone tried to quash it. I arranged for a staged technical difficulty that would cut the gala feed right when Harper claimed credit. In that blackout, the truth would fill the silence. All the while, Harper and Jake strutted through the office like kings. They sent me smug LinkedIn posts, charity photos, and messages about how easy success had become. Their confidence made them complacent, and complacency makes people sloppy. The night before the awards, I sat in my tiny living room with the final dossier open on my laptop. The files were organized, the witnesses prepped, the reporter on standby. My allies had shown up, one by one, in my inbox with short, steady messages, ready. See you there. We believe you. My thumb hovered over the email client. The send button glowed like a countdown. Then my phone buzzed. A single text. From an unknown number. Are you sure you want to do this tonight? I looked up. The city lights outside my window blinked like an audience waiting for the punchline. Some part of me wanted to freeze. Another part smiled, cold and certain. I tapped the screen, scrolling to the scheduled time for the awards live stream, and the ballroom glittered like a staged sunrise, spotlights, clinking glasses, and the kind of applause that builds empires. Harper and Jake took the stage like they owned the room. Cameras angled in, influencers smiled, and their PR speeches rolled off rehearsed tongues. They were smug, untouchable, the joke still very much on me, at least that's what they thought. Then the lights went out. Not the polite technical difficulty blackout I'd planned, but a breathless silence. A hush fell over the crowd. For a heartbeat, Harper laughed it off, smoothing her dress as if she'd scripted the moment. Then the screens behind them flickered, and the feed didn't return to their smiling faces. Instead, it filled with files, side-by-side comparisons of my original campaign decks and the ones they'd uploaded as their own. Metadata timestamps scrolled like an accusation. Zoom clips played, Harper confessing, on a recorded call, how we'll just rebrand her work and she'll never know. Jake's laugh echoed, captured on a separate file, bragging about manipulating client invoices. Phones came up. Journalists leaned forward. The laughter sucked out of the room, replaced by the hum of cameras capturing everything. A reporter I'd briefed stood, voice steady. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been given evidence of intellectual property theft, forged communications, and client misrepresentation by Crescent Media's new division. She read aloud the sworn affidavits, Harper's fired assistant describing altered documents, the IT specialist's server logs showing unauthorized file moves, Mara's recorded approvals proving my authorship. The lawyer I'd signed with slid forward with subpoenas tucked under her arm, handing them to stunned event organizers. Harper's face went from porcelain to ash. Jake reached for a joke that wouldn't land. This is ridiculous, he stammered. But the room was already recording, already live-streaming the unravel. Investors who had flown in for the night checked their feeds. Clients opened emails and found attached proof that their campaigns had been misrepresented. Phones buzzed with messages asking for immediate meetings, refunds, and worst for Harper and Jake, public apologies. Within an hour, press releases hit inboxes, 2 major clients cutting ties, an investor suspending funds, and a legal injunction freezing Crescent Media's new division assets pending investigation. Outside, cameras circled as the first compliance officers arrived. Within a day, HR announced an internal investigation. Within a week, the board placed Crescent Media's leadership on leave pending review. Harper's name, once a glossy headline, began to trend with words like fraud and plagiarism. But the real satisfaction wasn't in the headlines. It was in watching Harper and Jake try, petulantly, painfully, to joke their way out of an empty room. Their audience had turned on them. The jokes they'd once directed at me ricocheted back, now cutting deeper than they ever had. They were reduced to sweaty smiles and whispered defenses. I walked through the crowd afterward, not triumphant in a shout, but calm, the way a storm passes and leaves the air clean. Strangers patted my shoulder. Former colleagues offered quiet apologies. Mara hugged me with a sob. My allies filed out, exhausted but steady. On the way out, a server accidentally left a clip playing, Jake's old voicemail, the one where he'd mocked me, now echoing as background noise. People pointed, then laughed, not with cruelty but with recognition of the truth. The joke had a new target. I stepped into the cool night, the city lights reflecting in my eyes. They had tried to humiliate me. Tonight, they became the punchline. Strange how silence can feel louder than applause. Weeks after the gala, Crescent Media, once a symbol of success, crumbled under the weight of its own arrogance. Headlines told the story better than I ever could. Crescent executives exposed in corporate theft scandal. Harper Dawson and Jake Collins under investigation for fraud and plagiarism. The fall of a marketing empire. Harper tried to fight it at first, public statements, teary interviews, even a half-hearted apology video. But no one bought the act anymore. The evidence was too solid, too detailed. Every stolen file, every timestamp, every voice recording had become public domain. She wasn't the boss anymore, she was the cautionary tale every ambitious rookie whispered about. Jake fared even worse. He lost his position, his sponsorship deals, and the apartment he'd bragged about online. The same influencers who once laughed at his jokes now used his name as a hashtag for karma. I heard through a mutual contact that he was working freelance gigs under fake names, anything to escape the digital scarlet letter of their downfall. As for me, my inbox overflowed. Former clients reached out, offering new contracts, collaborations, and partnerships. People I'd never met wrote messages like, "You're the reason I stood up to my toxic boss, and watching you fight back gave me courage." I didn't just rebuild my career, I redefined it. I launched my own creative agency, Eclipse Strategies, built on transparency and integrity. Within months, we signed our first major campaign. The same media outlets that once humiliated me now requested interviews, calling me the woman who outsmarted her bullies. But beneath the success, there was peace. A quiet, grounded strength that came not from revenge alone, but from knowing I'd survived what was meant to destroy me. One afternoon, as I was leaving a new client meeting downtown, I spotted Harper across the street. No cameras this time. No designer clothes, no entourage. Just her, alone, waiting for a bus, pretending not to see me. Our eyes met for a split second. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I simply nodded, acknowledging the story we both knew too well. The story of a woman who'd been mocked in public, and came back stronger in silence. Because in the end, I didn't need to humiliate them. Their downfall was their own reflection. They tried to make me the joke. Now they're the punchline that no one laughs at anymore. Have you ever been underestimated, mocked, or betrayed by people who thought they'd always win? Did they ever make you feel small, just for you to rise higher than they ever imagined? Share your story in the comments below. Speech balloon, and if you believe in poetic justice, hit that subscribe button. Because sometimes, karma doesn't wait. It just takes perfect timing.